Thanks for joining us.
Talkline Network Radio, America's longest-running Jewish broadcast network, the voice of the Jewish community.
Welcome to the podcast.
You are now tuned in to this episode of our podcast. Today we are going to interview some of the greatest and most influential minds in our field. And now, please welcome your host.
You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
And we're back. It's always great, always a privilege, a treat to have Elisha Wiesel with us, the son of the legendary Eli Wiesel. And he is somebody who is, even though he's involved in the world of finance, he's still connected to the Jewish community. He cares about our community, cares about New York, and he's been speaking out about the current election and some of the pitfalls it has for not only the Jewish community, but for all New Yorkers. Thank you for joining us again.
Zev, always great to see you.
So I know that you were the headliner of an event at one of the synagogues in Manhattan congregation, Ohev Tzedek, with Andrew Cuomo. How did that go, by the way?
It went great. Governor Cuomo was just really, really strong in his convictions as to why this race matters so much. We talked a lot about our mutual fathers when Mario Cuomo and my father, Eli Wiesel, stood together at the UN in 1983, really excoriating the UN for its continued anti-Semitism. So I think the Cuomo family and the Wiesel family have stood shoulder to shoulder before, and it was incredible to get to do that together with the governor on the eve of this very important race.
Well, he's very emotional about his father. I had him on the other night. We spent about 45 minutes. And I mentioned that one of the highlights of my career is that I had a 45-minute to an hour sit down with his father. His father actually came down to our radio station in Rockland County, and he seemed very touched by that. He's very emotional when it comes to his dad.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. He said he thought he was the second best governor to be in the seat, and out of deference to his father. And I stopped and I pointed up at the Asara Hadibra, at the Ten Commandments that were looming above us, and that respect for one's parents is obviously a deeply held value for him and his family, as well as for our community.
Now, there is a movement underway where they want to get Jews, especially reserving Jews, to vote for Cuomo, not to vote for Republican, not to vote for Republican Sliwa. How is that coming along? Because I hear some people say, well, I want to vote for him, for Cuomo, because I want to stop Mandani. Others say, I don't want to vote for him. How do you navigate that?
Listen, one of the questions I asked the governor is, how do you make room for Republicans in your administration? And, what I think he said in a very compelling way is this is one of those elections that's not about partisan politics. We literally have a choice between a guy who is not only someone who said things that get very close to anti-Semitism, that make Jews unsafe, but he's running on it. He's running on a platform of othering the majority of the Jewish community in New York who are Zionists and making them feel uncomfortable and unsafe in their own city. And then you have a spoiler, Curtis Sliwa, who's clearly third in the polls, has no chance of even catching up to the second place, and is determined to throw this election into the hands of Mamdani. So what he said, and what I agree with, is this is an election that transcends partisan politics. It's really time to just make a very binary decision. Do you want somebody who is going to divide the city or someone who is going to unite it?
Certainly a very, very important election, even though I would say that he has said some anti-Semitic things. If you use the word globalize the Intifada, that's anti-Semitic, because that talks about killing your Jews. Like globalize the Klan or globalize the pogrom. To me, it's the same thing.
It's a call for violence. It's terrible.
And he got arrested after October 7th for a demonstration outside Chuck Schumer's house and started chapters of, some of these pro-Hamas groups. So, and he has, free Palestine, which is also another anti-Israel, anti-Semitic statement. But the irony is, I know that you grew up in a household with your father, Eli Wiesel, the Holocaust survivor who helped raise the moral consciousness of the world. But the irony is, Zoran Mamdani is running as being an anti-Semite, and according to the polls that I've seen, maybe 25-30% are voting for him because he's anti-Semitic and because he's anti-Israel. That's what's frightening.
It's terrible. Look, I was at one of these rallies. You have to remember, these are rallies that Zoran Mamdani was at first attending and speaking at. then endorsing from afar, and then finally under pressure, now he only code switches, right? He uses certain language to show that he's with the people who are doing it. I was at one of these rallies, on Sukkot, on October 7th, 2025, and I was holding a sign saying that Hamas needs to now accept the peace deal. And I was, I was assaulted there. I had, I got shoved. I had coffee poured all over me by a mob that is very much in tune with where he's coming from. This is the future of our city if we don't do something about it.
So what can we do? Because on the one hand, I'm glad to see there have been some voter registration attempts, and I believe I've heard numbers as high as 50,000, not enough. On the other hand, I'm not sure if we really are as effective as maybe other communities like in Westchester when Jamal Bowman was running, where they were very unified. I think everybody is doing their own thing here in New York.
I was very involved in that campaign for Latimer, and yes, it was a tremendous turnout by the community there. The Jewish Voter Action Network with Maury Litwack has been active on the ground. Synagogues and shuls are reaching out to the campaigns to get all the information, to get turnout up. There's no question that this is a pivotal moment for us. And if you ask like what's the most important thing that has to happen, there are really two most important things that have to happen. Number one, Sliwa has to drop. He's just spoiling the race, and Jewish Republicans, non-Jewish Republicans, anybody who cares about the future of the city, the game of chicken has gone on for long enough. So these 5 councilmen, anybody who is in any position of authority for the Republican Party needs to say sometimes it's just more important to make sure a really bad guy doesn't get into office. So I hope that the Republican community will come together and do what's needed. And it's not fair. It's not fair that the Republican candidate should have to drop out when it's the D seat that is so contested and the Democrats have made all these mistakes. But nonetheless, it's what needs to happen to save our city, and I hope they do it. The second thing, as you mentioned, is turnout. We've got to show up for this. And not only do we have to show up for it, but I think Jews who care about the future of the city need to be engaging with other Jews and non-Jews and having this conversation. There is so much latent hatred towards Israel and towards Jews who are Zionists that we can no longer hide from it. We have to have these conversations. We have to put our views out into the open. We have to challenge people. And if we can only move a few people, that might end up being enough in a two-way race.
Do you think that the Governor Cuomo is doing an adequate job in reaching out to the Jewish community?
Yes. And in fact, I'm now at the point where I think that Governor Cuomo, by the way, who has been reaching out to the Hasidic communities, he's been reaching out to the Jews here on the Upper West Side. He's been getting around. I actually feel like he needs to go speak to the non-Jewish communities now. I think it should be very clear at this point for the Jewish community what the choice is. And we, those in the Jewish community who understand the dangerous divisiveness of Mamdani, we need to take it the rest of the way because the candidate is busy. Cuomo's got a lot of ground to cover. Mamdani has shown himself to be a candidate willing to other an entire section of the community. I think Governor Cuomo now needs to stand up and show that he is going to do the exact opposite. He's going to reach out to every community in the city, make them feel welcome, make them feel important. We are a melting pot. I think that's his vision. So I actually don't want him to spend much more time in the Jewish community. Zev, I think you and I need to do that.
Well, here's the interesting thing. The whole thing about anti-Semitism and the anti-Israel reverberates in the Jewish community. I don't believe it reverberates as much in the non-Jewish community. And that's part of the problem. This way, things have changed. As I alluded earlier in New York, it used to be if you ran for office, you had to be pro-Israel. Now, if you're running for office, it helps you if you're anti-Israel. At least that's what Mamdani has been showing in this race.
I don't know if it's so much a question of Jewish, non-Jewish, frankly, as it is of age. I think that the single biggest demographic issue in this race is much less about the color of your skin or whether you go to a church, a mosque, or a synagogue. I think the single biggest issue really is just how old are you? And I think if you're under 40 and you've been exposed to a ton of views that are socialist in nature and you hear somebody saying free stuff, I think it sounds very exciting. Here's a young man who's running around, smiling nonstop, very polished, articulate. They're being fed a bunch of lies, and unfortunately, they're eating it up. And I think those of us who are a little older, who've been around the block a few times, who've learned a little bit more history, know about the failed promises of socialism and where this stuff goes, I think age is actually the biggest divide in this particular race.
I think, though, also the the Gaza situation when the war was going on. I think that fueled a lot of people. And listen, he's tapping into the Muslim community, about 800,000 Muslims in New York, which have not been voting in a block before, and he's been organizing them too. And part of what's been fueling that has been the anti-Israel bias that's motivated that. So I'm looking at all these, and you have some of the older Muslims that are voting for him and the others because of this stance. That's what's concerning to me, because this anti-Jewish element is really, this is a new trend, unfortunately. In the United States, that is, not in other parts of the world, but in the United States.
I'm more worried on the margin about our own community in that regard. And clearly the failure that we've done, where the fact that in that Democratic primary, so many Jews did show up and vote for Mamdani. Like, we have our own work to do. So, before I point at the Muslim community and tell them what they need to do, like, I think for me, the priority is first and foremost, we have to have some of these conversations within the Jewish community and discuss, like, where did we go wrong that all of these people are believing these lies and all of this terrible spin that Israel is genocidal, that we're apartheid, that we're all of these terrible claims. We have a lot of work to do within our own community.
Our guest is Elisha Wiesel. He is the son of the legendary Eli Wiesel. He has hedge fund of his own for the last couple of years, but he's very much involved in the fabric of Jewish life. I always like seeing him in different synagogues in the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And he is motivated right now to help the Jewish community navigate what could be a terrible situation where you have the election of Mamdani, who is an anti-Semite and socialist who can do all kinds of damage to our city. You mentioned about Jews. On the left, you have those maybe 20-30% that voted for Mamdani that like his policies, but you also have groups that have met with him. And for example, both soccer communities met with him over the Sukkot holiday and pretty much seemed to endorse Mamdani.
Listen, I think, the Satmar Hasidim have been around for a while, and they're covering all their bases. And I think it's not too late for Governor Cuomo to win the Satmar vote. I think, he has put out calls to them. I know that he's engaged with them. It's not pleasant. But remember, these are also a lot of the, sometimes you see Hasidim at some of these rallies saying that they hate Israel. What can you do?
But those are Naturi Karta. I don't call. They're not even in Hasidim, really. Yeah. They're really outside the pale. Yeah. But even though
I am optimistic that the Satmar Hasids are going to get to the right place on this. I think that no matter how interested they are in securing the financial needs of their community, they also have to be concerned with the safety of their community and the safety of other Jews. And I'm a bit of an optimist on this. I think they're going to get to the right place, and we're going to see that on Election Day.
Well, I asked Governor Cuomo about the Satmar Hasidim because they endorsed them a number of months ago, and I asked him if they're still endorsing him now, or they seem like they endorse Mamdani, and he said it's out. I guess they want to see who the winner's going to be before they make a final decision. So here's the question: do you believe that Governor Andrew Cuomo can win, whether Curtis drops out or doesn't drop out? Can he win this election?
I think if Curtis drops out, Governor Cuomo can win this election.
And if he doesn't drop out?
Very challenging. Very challenging. And then I think there will be an entire generation of New Yorkers who could have remembered Mr. Sliwa very fondly and gratefully for his work in the Guardian Angels and his service to the city, who instead are going to forever remember him as the person who trashed the election and threw it to a communist.
Now, the party chapters of the Republican Party told Curtis to stay in. And one of the reasons why, from what I understand, is that if he drops out, it'll hurt Republican candidates down the totem pole, so to speak. So if he's not there, that's going to hurt their voter turnout. And who says that every Republican is going to go out and vote for Cuomo? They may just stay home.
First of all, what a infantilizing of their voter base, that they think their voter base isn't smart enough to be able to say, we're going to make one decision at the top of the ballot for who the mayor is going to be, and then we're going to make another sequence of decisions.
But that's the case in other elections. There's been those that are saying the top of the ticket will affect the bottom of the ticket.
I'm sure that that's what's said. I'm also very confident that a leadership within the Republican Party who wants to treat their voter base like adults, like intelligent adults, can figure out how to, develop and broadcast an intelligent message.
Well, we'll wait and see. But the real thing is, and are you finding that Jewish individuals over 18 are really registering to vote, are going to be invested in this election, because I'm still seeing people that are not registering. There's still some big numbers, and not everybody's going to be voting. And if they wait till election day, that also is a problem, because something can come up and there's issue. It's raining, it's the baby is sick, or whatever it might be that would stop them from voting. And for some reason, we don't really embrace early voting as we should.
I believe in early voting. I beg everybody who is listening to this broadcast, one of the most important things you can do in this election is get out there and vote. Please do it early. There's ways to do it. If you go to that website, we can actually try to pull it up in the background here, but it's really not hard. They've made it very straightforward to do. So I agree 100% with Zev. This has to be a moral imperative. And the shuls are getting together. I saw a note from something like 20 to 25 of the different shul leaders in Manhattan, all calling on people to get out and vote.
I like to see the shul be more active. I know that it may not be popular, and I may get myself in hot water, but voter registration forms should be given out in shul, even on Shabbos. People should take it home because of the urgency of the matter over here, too. I'd like to see every yeshiva, every day school, the child turns 18 years of age, they get a voter registration form. My hat's off to the Syrian community. Magen David won't let you into school unless you're registered to vote.
Yep.
One of the synagogues, Shari Tzion, I believe, you couldn't buy high holiday seats if you didn't register to vote. I think that's very important. I love that stance.
I do too. There's really nothing more important. And what a great opportunity is to educate our younger generation in how civics work by doing that. But I want to go a little further, and I want to say there are some, rabbis who've been actually very brave recently and crossed a line, which is something that I rarely think is appropriate. But I think that, Rav Ami Hirsch, Rav Elliot Cosgrove, some of these people are really stepping forward.
Rabbi Charles Steinmetz from KJ Manhattan, also been very vocal.
Yep. And I think that that's really important. I'm not saying that everybody needs to do that, but let's create the forums to have some of these conversations. And even in some more of the left-leaning communities, I've reached out to a few of the more liberal synagogues, and I said, look, I understand you're not necessarily going to endorse Cuomo. I understand you may want to remain neutral in this particular race, but at least let's have a platform. The governor's now busy. The candidates are busy. They've got to reach out to a lot of communities. But I think we need more debates and more panels. Let's have these issues out. If there are still members of the Jewish community who are confused and think that voting for Mamdani is a good idea, you know what? Let Zoran send his best guy. Maybe that's Brad Lander. Okay. Let's have Sliwa send whoever he wants to send. I would gladly get on stage with any of these people and debate it out for any community that wants to get to the bottom of these issues so they can make a more informed decision.
And the question is, there's a lot of people undecided, from what I understand, too, because they're not crazy about any of the candidates. That's really what's the core here. Nobody's really excited. We say, I'm passionate about this election. They may be passionate against Mamdani, but they're not passionate for somebody else. Whoever vote will be an anti-Mamdani vote. But
I want to get to a quote from one of my favorite New Yorkers of all time. When you get to a fork in the road, take it. To be an adult, that's a great Yogi Berra quote. And to be an adult means making decisions, often that are not easy decisions, but you got to make them.
I also want everybody to take, and I've been saying this for months now, a high pledge that you're going to get 18 people to vote, or reach out to 18 people, get them to vote, your family, your friends. You'd be surprised that people need a little pushing. People are very busy with their lives.
Yep.
Any new projects coming up after this election?
I can barely see through to the end of the week, so I don't know about seeing through to the end of the month.
Are you on the campaign trail a lot?
No, I'm not on the campaign trail, but I'm active, and I'm trying to figure out what we can do to move the needle here, because I love this city.
And I think we have to motivate people to understand the importance of this election. And people say, "Oh, it'll blow over. It won't be so bad." He won't have time to defund the yeshivas or institutions. He's busy with other things. So people are really lulled by that, thinking that he can't arrest Bibi because that's not in his jurisdiction. So people are lulled by, but there is a danger, not just because of the Jewish factor, because of other economic factors that will hurt New York City.
Listen, to me, it's very clear for everybody who, has read Night and come over to me and gushed about how important Elie Wiesel's work is. And they ask themselves, why didn't people do more in the 1930s? Okay, this is it. This is your test. It's happening now. There's somebody who is anti-Semitic in nature, and deed, trying to get elected as mayor of the city. What are you doing about it? What are you going to tell your kids you did? Your grandkids? You are living history right now. We are all living history. What are the decisions we're going to make?
Here's a question, which I'll close out. If Mamdani gets to be mayor and he has a Hanukkah party, will you go to that Hanukkah party?
I don't think so.
I'm getting those questions. By the way, when President Trump was president, I asked liberals if they would go to the Hanukkah party in the White House. And you'd be surprised. A lot of them who were opposed to Trump said they would have gone to the Hanukkah party in the White House. So I was just wondering. So that question has come up now in this particular situation. Hopefully we won't get to that. Hopefully by Hanukkah we'll have a real light to shine the way. Elisha Wiesel, thank you for joining us. Look forward to having you back. And listen, thank you for caring, for speaking out, motivating people. I know it's a passion and you're very, very busy with the hedge funds, but I know this is such an important issue that people are taking time out to really make a difference. And thank you for making a difference.
Thank you, Zev. Thank you for keeping our community together and informed.
Into
Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast, the pulse beat of the Jewish community.
For continuous Jewish programs, TalklineNetwork.com, or our 24-hour-a-day listen line at 641-741-0389. For past shows, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Instagram, and all major podcast platforms, or jewishpodcast.org. Thanks for listening to the TalklineNetwork.com.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.